Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today is going to be the update to the Cleave build, the first build update for the Ascending Tide DLC. This is a massive update with lots of new changes, especially when it comes to the strength of skills and how they're scaled, but this build is still very, very relevant. Now, I have been away, of course, content-wise for about a week. You can probably hear it in my voice a little bit still. Well, the whole family has had fucking COVID all week, and they still haven't got rid of it. So, I'm struggling with that, so if I am a little bit croaky, I do apologize, but we're going to get on with the video nonetheless. So, first of all, as per usual, we're going to go into the stats. We need a potion first. Potion and resists. There we go. We are on 12k max magicka, 26.7k max health, and 32.3k max stamina. Yes, of course, that can go higher with a single target variation, but we'll worry about that later. We've got 64 points into max stamina. We are sitting on 49.6% weapon crit, but that actually goes up to around sort of 55, 60 when you get into combat. And we're using the Thief Mundus Stone. And of course, as you can see, yes, we have a pet. Don't tell anyone though, we haven't got to that part yet. And we're using max health, max stamina food. The flat stuff. Highest max health and max stamina bonus combined. Yes, of course, you can use recovery food if you prefer, but just bear in mind, if you do that, you're going to lose health. So you're going to be squishier. So I'm going to go into the skills in detail, both the AoE setup and the single target setup. There will obviously be a tie-in there with the gear, because we're going to go straight into that as well. There are very, very slight variations to the skills, but nothing major. There's one skill we no longer activate, but we're going to get to that in a moment anyway, because basically the vast majority of the players using this build didn't like to use the active skill anyway, and found that they were better off with less complications and actually got better output. So altering things for the sake of that did actually make a lot of sense. And of course, in testing the skill in question, which is bound armaments, by the way, we were using the daggers to give extra damage, but we were taking away a Reckon Blow to do so. Well, the update as it is now, with this particular build, the damage output's exactly the same, so less complicated, same damage, makes sense to not even bother using it. Anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. So, we're using a pet. If you didn't pay attention to the patch notes, basically every single skill in the game that is damage-based scales off of your highest of your offensive stats. So your stamina, your weapon damage, your magicka, and your spell damage. It's not spell damage and magicka, stamina and weapon damage. You don't have to have the two lined up. You could have stamina and spell damage, or magicka and weapon damage. Whichever stats are highest are the ones that will scale your damage output. The only difference now is the resource pool the skill has to be cast from. So this particular skill used to scale based on magicka and spell damage. Now it scales off of any highest offensive stats, but it costs magicka. Since we're a stam build, that's brilliant, because it doesn't really cost us anything, because we've got magicka for days. So we've got the pet on the front bar. This is a Daedric Summoner skill line. Third ability you unlock starts off as Summon Winged Twilight, morph it to Tormentor. This will do damage constantly, for free. As long as you're in combat, this will keep hitting and hitting and hitting. If you want to control it, obviously, heavy attack the target you want, and it will hit that one specifically. But if you activate the ability, it will give your pet a buff for 15 seconds, making it do more damage over that duration. However, this doesn't affect your pet any longer once the enemy is under 50% health. So obviously use it during the fight, but when the boss or target or whatever you're up against goes under 50% health, stop casting it and just let your pet do its damage. This has to be on both bars, otherwise it will disappear. We've just double barred pet. So for those of you that want ease of use, you now have a damage over time, basically. It's not strictly a dot, but you've got damage over time for free. Easy. Barb Trap, of course. Fighters Guild skill line. This is the last ability to unlock. It does take some time to get, but once you've got it, morph it to Barbed Trap from Trap Beast. Put it on the ground. It will pop after a second and a half, and it will put out an 18 second damage over time bleed effect to the target with an initial hit as well, and for the duration you will get minor force increase in all of your crit damage done. This doesn't have to be on a target that can be immobilized. It can go on a boss, it can't immobilize, it will still do the damage. Any target this hits, it will still apply it. Plus this is damage over time, which is very important to the overall build. Don't let that run out. Carve is very important for one of the variations of the build, but not for both, but understand the skill nonetheless. Two-handed skill line starts off as Cleave, morph it to Carve. Very simply put, this does an area of effect hit initially in a Cleave frontal AoE. which is a bleed damage type, which can apply a status effect, of course, applying minor mangle if you're lucky. But also, every single target affected by this will get a bleed on them as well continuously for 12 seconds. So bleed is a damage type, not necessarily a dot. The initial hit is a bleed type, but the dot is also a bleed type. So the initial one can apply a status effect, and then the constant ticks can apply a status effect. That's the purpose of this particular damage type. But also, this has been buffed somewhat for duration and ease of use. As you can see here, the pet just stays there and does damage. And this, if you apply it 3 times throughout its duration before it runs out, it will actually max out duration-wise up to 30 seconds. So if you go hit, 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 and then leave it, you got 30-second dot on all targets. Fantastic. In the meantime, of course, when you cast it, you will give yourself a damage shield, which is really handy for your survival as well. So we will use this once every rotation, once it's built up, on the AoE version, but on the non-AoE version, we won't actually be using it at all. We'll have a different setup of our weapons. We'll come to that later. Wreck and Blow is your main spammable after Carve is cast. This is quite simple. Light attack, hit it, light attack, hit it, light attack, hit it. You can't bar swap during the channel because it is a channeled effect. And if you do block while it's channeling, you'll cancel it. It takes 0.8 seconds to wind up, but it does massive physical damage to single target and grants him power for 3 seconds afterwards as well, which means the next light attack you do or heavy attack will be stronger. Lights and heavies with two-handers are very, very powerful regardless because they do splash and increase your next single target hit. So make sure obviously you don't miss those lights and heavies. This is technically not the right skill for this particular version. The area of effect version, I would highly recommend you use the other morph. Now I have quickly morphed this out because the AoE version, you want this skill. You want reverse slice from the two-hander skill line, which does hit surrounding enemies. It does 300% extra damage at low health, so it's your major execute. Under kind of 30 to 25% health, you want to spam this instead of any other skill. But other enemies surrounding you also take 100% of the damage inflicted on the primary target. So the more damage you do to the main one, all surrounding targets get hit for it as well. It's very, very powerful. This is for the AoE version of the setup. However, if you're focusing purely on single target, then of course you want to change it to Executioner. This does up to 400% extra damage on single target, but again, it does not allow for splash damage. It doesn't hit surrounding targets. I personally preference the other one no matter what, but if you want slightly higher single target only, then of course you can go for this morph instead. Now, Dawnbreaker is on the front bar, literally just for stats. We are using it from the Fighters Guild skill line purposely for the passives here, which we're going to go over later. But basically, leave it there. It will give you extra weapon damage. If you want to use it, of course, you do get a weapon damage bonus, so it's nice you're using it in Execute, but for the majority of the time, you don't want to use this. You want to use your back bar ulti instead. It was really tricky to say. Back bar. Poison injection is very important to our build. We are utilizing a weapon that does benefit from the usage or activation of this, so you do want to make sure you get poison injection as soon as possible. Starts off as poison arrow, morph it to poison injection, single target damage over time. The lower the health, the stronger it gets. Don't let it run out. If it does run out, don't let it run out for too long. Hurricane is very simple. This was also altered in this particular update. So if you go to the Stormcalling skill line, second ability to unlock starts off as Lightning Form, morph it to Hurricane. This gets stronger and stronger and stronger the longer the duration. However, the duration has been increased. It now lasts 20 seconds, meaning that the expansion of the skill and the increase to the damage is much more accurate and it's easier to apply inside your rotations. You want to apply this every second rotation if you can. It's really simple, gives you a resistance buff, and does damage and area of effect over time. Yes, of course, you can use Boundless Storms if you prefer now, because the stats are scaling in a way that you can use either one or the other. But just bear in mind, this gets stronger and stronger and stronger. The other one has a consistent damage output instead of increasing. Just bear in mind also, the other one lasts 30 seconds, not 20, but you don't get the minor expedition. You only get major expedition for 4 seconds. The choice is yours. The output is roughly the same. The damage type is different though, as is the size of the area of effect. But if you're struggling for resources, you can't maintain your stamina too much, go with Boundless instead. It costs magicka. You won't have to keep worrying about recasting this too often. Next ability, of course, is up to you. You can use Crit Surge or you can use Vigor to give yourself a heal, but this is a very powerful skill. It gives you major brutality and sorcery at all times while it's active. 33-second timer, costs magicka, and every single crit you do each second, 1 crit per second, any crits will heal you. So if you are doing constant damage over time, it's inevitable that the law of averages is going to give you a crit every second roughly. You are going to be constantly healing, and yes, of course, this can get very, very powerful. So make sure you keep this running at all times. If you're used to playing squishy and you can utilize your damage shield from Carve quite actively, and you are keeping up your resistance buff, then of course you can just use Vigor instead. It's entirely up to you. I'd recommend this, however, don't leave home without it. It's very, very strong. Endless Hail, of course, is from the bow skill line. Ground-based area of effect ability from the bow skill line, basically. The other one lasts not very long with more damage. This one lasts longer with less damage. The variation of the two depends, obviously, on your build as to which one you pick. This particular one, you need this one. The other one is too short. You won't get the most out of it, and you'll actually get less damage. The reason we want a longer duration, not only because of our rotation being slightly longer, is because your weapon glyphs can constantly apply no matter which bar you're on, as long as you place an area of effect weapon ability from that bar on the ground or around you. If you do that with these skills, your glyph can constantly fire as long as it's doing damage. If it stops doing damage, your glyph runs out. It doesn't apply again until you recast it. The longer duration allows us to keep track of that. The shorter duration, you'd have to swap bars too often. It's a pain in the ass. Ulti on the back bar is up to you. I would recommend this ulti because it seems to be the strongest single target for this particular setup, which is actually in Storm Calling. No, it's not. Daedric Summoning. Go for the Greater Storm Atro if you want single target. Go for the other version if you want more AoE, but it doesn't last as long. It's quite cheap. There's lots and lots of lightning damage. Very strong indeed, and someone can take a synergy from this and get major berserk. Just bear in mind, by the way, even if you're a tank and the synergy lands on you, if no one else is around to pick it up, because you buff this Storm Atronach as well. You're taking the synergy to buff you and the other members of the group, or other members' ulti, if you like. Just bear in mind that, people, I know lots of people ignore the synergy, like, oh, that's not for me. If no one is around to pick it up. You just buff the sorcerer that casted it. No, it doesn't buff the full sorcerer and all their abilities, but it does buff this particular pet. Now, we're going to go into passives quite quickly here. These are... Oh, Suppression Field is actually really good. Quick one on this one. Very big bubble on the ground, stuns everything for 12 seconds, does damage over time. Very, very good. Fast damage over time, massive stun. Oh shit button. Use that if you want it. But passives. So this is going to reduce the cost of all of your abilities. This will give you a heal if you use dark magic abilities. We're technically not, unless you use this, of course. After blocking an attack, your next stam, health, or magicka cost for any abilities is cheaper. So if you block something and then cast something, it's cheaper. Quite simple. And we're not using this at all. We're not using dark magic abilities, unless, of course, you drop an ulti. So we're not going to benefit from this particular bonus here, the Minor Prophecy. If you've got another sorcerer in your group using an ability, of course they will do, and they'll give it to you instead, but you're not the one bringing it. We are using these abilities, of course, so you do want this. Restore 300 magicka or stamina whenever your non-ultimate Daedric Summoning abilities ends. The resource is dictated by the ability's cost. So if your pet dies, then of course you will get magicka stamina back, but also don't forget you do cast an ability here, so if you activate it and it runs out, that also counts. Increases your health stamina recovery by 20%, which is very, very nice. Get that as soon as possible. And of course, increases your max health if you have a Daedric Summoning ability active on yourself. We have a pet. So if we check our health real quick, 26.7k. Let's dump the pet. 20... Oh, it's gone. Do it again. 24.8k. So do not let your pet vanish. Make sure that even if you come back from a death, you get that pet up straight away because you've got a health bonus with it. Really, really handy stuff. Now, we are, of course, using the Storm Calling abilities. Very important here. Increased mag recovery, increased physical and shock damage. Every 10% health the enemy has, you do 1% more damage. So starting at 100%, you do 10% more. 90%, you do 9% more. And then even at 10%, you still do 1% more damage than everybody else. It gradually goes lower and lower and lower, but we buff that with Bloodthirsty anyway and our Execute. But at the end of the day, your burst up front as a sorcerer is much higher than everybody else's flat out. Increases your weapon and spell damage by 2% for each sorcerer ability on your bar. Now, technically, for another setup, we are actually going to have more than this on the front bar. So at the moment, we've only got 2%, and the back, we've actually got 4%. So we do close the gap there. We're not using a two-hander. We're using a bow on the back. So we have technically usually less damage, depending on how you set yourselves up. But this kind of closes the gap. The single target setup, we are actually going to have an extra sorcerer ability on the front. So we are going to have another 2% on top of that. Two-hander abilities, very important, of course. This will make your light attack splash damage, of course, to nearby enemies. This, depending on your weapon type, I know it looks like we're using an axe, we're actually using a sword. This will increase your benefit for each one of those. So basically, an axe will give you extra crit damage done, maces will give you more penetration, and swords will give you more weapon and spell damage. We've gone for the more weapon and spell damage, but if you find that you're critting more often than not, then of course you can go for an axe instead if you prefer. It's entirely up to you, but just bear in mind the crit cap for damage is 125%. We're already at 119 with the target dummy. You start adding major brittle in there somewhere, we're way over cap, it's unnecessary. Depends on the situation though. Reduce the cost of these abilities. That makes sense. We're going to be spamming them. If you do a heavy attack, your next single target hit, or direct damage hit even, including area of effect ones actually, so your carve, will actually hit harder, and increases your stamina recovery by 30% for 10 seconds after killing the target. You're a berserker. The more you kill, the more recovery you get. Now, we are using a bow, of course. These are very important. Make sure you pay attention to them. Long distance does more damage. We are going to stay close, but if you do have to go range, that's a benefit. Increases your crit chance while on the bar. Reduces the stamina cost of these abilities. Dealing damage with a light or a heavy attack increases your bow damage abilities and your lights and heavies from your bow by 5%, but it can stack 5 times. And each stack lasts 5 seconds. If you interrupt it with a new stack, the timer starts again, and it will consistently go up to that until you get to 25, and then it will stay there if you keep keeping that up. However, because we're only using it on the back bar, we're going to get about 3 or 4 stacks at most, but it does carry over for the small period of time that we have those running, obviously, and this will continue to buff us until it runs out. Don't miss your light attacks. Major expedition if you dodge roll on the bow bar. Nice and simple. This is your dodge roll. Run. Only lasts for 4 seconds. Don't dodge roll too close to a previous one, otherwise it will cost you more. It's a penalization system. Every time you dodge roll, it's like, no. It's going to cost you more stamina next time. You can't just dodge roll for free forever. We're not using any light armor abilities at all, or any light armor passives, so don't worry about those. You can, with the single target setup, go with 1 or 2 light if you want, but just watch your resources because you're going to lack recovery for the sake of getting pen and the small crit chance bonus. It's not really worth it on this build, but it's entirely up to you. I'd recommend staying 7 medium. Again, your choice. You want to get every single one of these. They all benefit towards your bonuses to crit damage, your crit healing, your flat damage output for weapon and spell damage. You've got both bonuses there. It's really, really handy. You've obviously got sneak bonuses and reduction to cost when it comes to dodge rolling and such. So your agility overall is really, really good for medium armor. But the flat bonuses is what you want the most of. It's this stuff here. Weapon and spell damage is freaking huge, especially with 7 pieces. So go for those as soon as possible. Fighters Guild, of course, is very important. I said we've got this for passives, which we do. Intimidating Presence, you want to keep the Beast Trap down. You want to get this because it gives you 3% extra weapon and spell damage for each Fighters Guild ability slotted. As you can see here, Beast Trap and the Ultimate. We've got a 6% bonus across the board. So while we do have a 2% bonus per Sorc skill, we have a 3% bonus per Fighters Guild skill. Really important stuff. If you kill stuff while Fighters Guild abilities are slotted, you get ulti back, 3 ulti per kill. It's really, really handy. You'll get ultimate very, very fast. And of course, don't forget our ultimate is really, really cheap. It's only 170. If you prefer, yes, of course, you can use Shooting Star, but just bear in mind, it did perform slightly less single target, but if you've got a big trash pull, obviously, that does count as extra damage over time per target. It can apply burn and status effects per target, and it does give you extra ulti back for each target hit. So in some situations, you might want to use forgotten what it's called, Shooting Star instead. COVID Brain, that's what that is. Your Fighters Guild ability is an additional 10% extra damage and doubles against players, vampires, and werewolves. So, of course, it's very important to get these passives. We're not using Mage's Guild skills at all, unless, like I said, you want to use Shooting Star, in which case you'll need Mage's Guild 10 for this. Undaunted, you do need these. This will give you 4% resources back for any synergy you take. Get it, it's very important. And this will give you 2% max resources, health, magicka, and stamina, based on how many different types of armor you're wearing. So if you have 1 type of armor, then of course you get 2%, 2 types you get 4, and 3 types you get 6. We're sticking to 1 type on purpose. If you want to alter that, you can, but just bear in mind your resources and flat stats are going to be affected. So if you are trying to min-max in any way whatsoever towards your own personal setup for whatever content you're in or group you're in, just bear in mind that will change things quite significantly if you start altering them too much. Orc, of course, we're an orc. We're a brawler. Increase stamina. Increase max health. When you deal damage, you heal once every 4 seconds. And yes, that can crit. and also increase weapon and spell damage. Also reduces the cost of sprint and increases your movement speed. Very fast, very chunky, very hard hitting. Really, really handy across the board. What else do you want? Alchemy, of course, is very important. Medicinal use. If you don't have this, you're wrong. There's an alchemy guide on the website and on the channel showing you how to max this level or skill line out in, what, 2 minutes? Everything is there. All you need to do is obviously get the materials. Yes, you can buy them off the market or farm them, whichever one suits you best. But you want to max this out, dump all your points, and then just put 3 into medicinal use. You don't have to have all this stuff. Just get that. Your potions will last longer, meaning the weapon and spell damage pots that people use a lot as DPSs, whether they're stamina or magical, whichever, those types of things are expensive, and they're not going to have their full uptime if you don't have this bonus. If you do have this bonus, they're going to outrun their cooldown, which is 100% uptime on your consumable buffs. You wouldn't let your buffs run out, don't let your consumables run out. Now, we're going to go into the gear, and this is going to be done inside the armory system, because this can get a little bit confusing otherwise. So we're going to go into here, and basically we've got 2 different variations of the build. We've got the single target build and the AoE build. And as you can see here, there's only one skill variation. So the skill variation is this. What we've done is we've taken off Carve for the single target build, and we've put bound armaments on just for the max stamina and light attack increase to damage. Never activate it. Yes, it was tested. No, it didn't get any extra damage. We lacked the damage from the Wreck and Blow because we weren't spamming it as much, in place of firing this every 4 light attacks, which technically, although you hit hard, ended up being less DPS than this. Then the light attack was obviously pushing from the 1 every so often empower we got, which was lacking here because we didn't have it in between this as well. It was falling off left, right, and center. It was some here, some not there, some here, some not there, backwards and forwards, and eventually the numbers were the same. So instead of light hit, fling daggers, light hit, fling daggers. Oh no, it ran out. Quick, reapply it. Oh no, my rotation's all messed up. Start again. Spam Wreck and Blow and light attacks. The damage output was the same because this passive bonus here did the work for us. So we just slot that. It gives us 2% extra spell damage and weapon damage. Win-win. Anyway, single target setup is going to come second. Actually, we're going to go for the AoE setup first because that's the one I've been showing you. So the reason for Carve, obviously, is because of this weapon here. If you use Carve, you'll get damage over time. Use it 3 times, you'll have 30 seconds. But it does an initial hit as well. As you can see here, if you fire it, it will do extra damage. Every single target in front of you will make that hit stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and every single target gets hit for the same amount of increased damage. So this, as a spammable, can actually outperform the crap out of Wreck and Blow if there are more than 2 or 3 targets. So if there's 1 target, you spam Wreck and Blow and keep up Carve once every 30 seconds. If there's multiple targets, you just spam Carve, and it gets really, really powerful. If you have a really large ad pull, like I'm talking a massive, massive pull, like a really clever tank, brave tank, pulled half the dungeon type pull, you can hit each target way in excess of 100k per hit. It's fucking crazy. But bear in mind, you need to understand how it works and able to apply it effectively. Also, bear in mind, although this does have a pen bonus at the front there, the 2-piece bonus, that's only if you have the perfected version. If you don't have the perfected version, the set works exactly the same, you just don't have the pen bonus. That's it. That's the only difference. So you want to go on normal, you can. Master's Boat is on both variations of the build. You have poison injection in your rotation. If you fire it at the target, that target will take more damage as if you had an extra 330 extra weapon and spell damage. You don't need a perfected one. Yes, it gives you extra weapon damage for having the perfected one, but it only applies on the back bar anyway, and you're not there for very long. So it's useless. If you want to be really, really picky about it and notice 1 to maybe less than that, maybe 1k DPS less, then of course go for the perfected. If you've got access to it, why not? But you don't need it. So Master's 2-hander sword imprecise on the front with poisons. Master's perfected bow on the back with weapon and spell damage. Now, very simple. Same setup as it always has been. Azure Blight on the helmet and shoulders and the jewelry. Everything else Reliquant. That gives you lots and lots of single target plus an active ticking damage over time. And it gives you lots and lots of AoE because all of your damage over time abilities stack up per tick. And the more dots, the faster they stack. And then when they get to 20, they go boom in area of effect. And every single target that gets hit by it obviously takes the same amount of damage. Also, every single target that gets hit by damage over time can have their own individual one of these stacking bombs. And they can all blow up together and blow each other up. This is a domino effect. It's fucking insane. Very, very powerful. Always has been, but the more adds, the better. If there is a fight with more than one target in it, you are going to excel. If you are not in a fight with more than one target in it, obviously just one target, which is extremely rare, then of course you want to use this setup instead, which is the single target build. Pillar of Nirn, two-hander, not a master's one, so yes, you can go on normal. Master's bow on the back, yes, still the same. Zahn on the helmet and shoulders, but you can change this to any monster set you like. This did actually do very, very well, single target, but there are other ones that were really close as well. So Grofdar was nice, Valken Scoria was nice, especially since we've got loads of dots. The choice is yours. Reliquant on the body, Pillar of Nirn on the jewelry, and weapon. Again, for both of them, you want Bloodthirsty and Divines on everything. Bloodthirsty jewelry, Divines armor. Single target build, AoE build. The rotation is identical, except, as you can see on the single target build, we use Executioner, not Reverse Slice, so more single target. And we don't cast Carve because we don't have it. So that's basically Wreck and Blow spam, and this one is Carve once every 30 seconds with Wreck and Blow spam. That's the fundamental difference. Damage output wise, here you're looking at about 85 to 90k. Single target. That's an area of effect build demonstrated in single target, so it's not really that accurate. The more ads you've got, the more bombs you've got, the more that single target gets because all the bombs start hitting that too. So eventually you can actually have a lot more single target damage on the AoE build if there are lots of enemies in the room than you would on the single target. However, single target, you're looking at 97 to 100k. No, it's not 120k, but it is built as it is, and you can take it straight into content without having to manipulate anything and pretend you're not cheesing anything. Now, when it comes to champion points, this is quite straightforward. There are 4 slottables in each tree that are extremely important. The rest is not important. The rest is inevitable, and you will level up and get them no matter what. Or these white or yellow ones are passives, and you don't need anywhere near half the champion points to be able to max them all out. But there is a path you want to follow in order to get what you need. So the only ones you want to focus on right now is unlocking your slottables. The rest, do it when you're ready. Unlock this node here with 10 points and get this bonus here, Fighting Finesse. 9 times out of 10 you want to use this, it gives you crit damage bonus. But if you do find you're in a situation where you're behind the target, then of course Backstabber is better for that. We don't want to use both, we just want to use one or the other. Behind the target, Backstabber. Not behind targets, use this. The other skill line you want to aim towards, or the champion point node area, is you want to put 10 points into here to unlock this. Yes, you want to get all these as and when you can, but just unlock this first. Then get Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, and Master at Arms. Now, Thaumaturge is obviously for damage over time. Reliquant is damage over time. Our skills like Carve, Beast Trap, and all that kind of stuff, Endless Hail, Poison Injection, they're all damage over time. So they all do benefit towards stacking Azurblight, and they all do damage anyway that we're doing. So it all counts. But if you want to focus more on the single target side of things, the area of effect side of things, you can, of course, take advantage of Biting Aura. So your Azurblight does fire off more damage, and so do your area of effect skills. But what you'll then find is that your single target damage over time will lack. Area of effect will be the same, single target will lack. So the output was very, very close here, but it's really not worth it most of the time to go for Biting Aura unless you're deliberately stacking massive stacks of ads. If you are, then of course you're going to be spamming Carve. Your Master's Weapon is going to be very, very powerful, and your Azurblight is going to do the same kind of boom boom that it usually does. So in a couple of ad situations, stick to Thaumaturge. In mass ad situations, go with Biting Aura. That's pretty much it for the blue tree. Green tree, unlock these in your own time, but you do want to obviously go for this. Treasure Hunter gives you higher quality loot from chests. This will make your food last longer. This gives you a chance to not even use your potion or poisons. And this, of course, makes you run faster between fights. The rest of it is all 100% quality of life. Most of it doesn't even affect you in combat anyway, so it's irrelevant. And the red stuff, of course, the basics. These don't need any prerequisites at all. Health, armor, recovery. Get those 3. Then you will need to come over to here, unlock this, then unlock this. 10 points there, 15 points here, 10 points here. Or you can max it out to get more health, and then unlock this. If you kill stuff, you get stamina back. Simple. All the rest can be done in your own time. There's no rush. The slottables are what count. Now we're going to go into the rotation. This is very, very, very simple. So, you'll have your Beast Trap on the ground, and you'll have your pet active. You will go to your back bar, and fire volley, or endless hail even. Light attack. Hurricane. Light attack. Poison injection. Swap bars. That's it on the back bar. Front bar is light attack carve. Then light attack wreck and blow 5 times. 4 times if you're slow. By the time your wreck and blow is finished, your pet should be down to about 2 seconds worth of timer left. Light attack pet to cast his buff. Light attack beast trap swap. Let's show what that looks like on an actual dummy. So let's get a small dummy. Handy being on PTS, you got everything for free. Saves a lot of time. So again, all you need to do, activate your pet and your beast trap. Volley. Light hurricane, light poison injection, swap. Light carve, light wreck and blow 4 or 5 times. Light pet, light beast trap, swap. Start again. That's it. Repeat, 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 repeat. There are 2 variations to that, however. We'll get rid of the pet. Based on the situation. So, at under 50% health, you don't cast the pet anymore. You just let it keep hitting. And when it goes to under 30 to 25%, you only cast carve once every 30 seconds, just like you were already. But instead of using light attack wreck and blow, you spam this. But because it's faster and it doesn't have a 0.8 second wind up, instead of doing 4 or 5 wreck and blows, you can actually get in about 6 or 7 executes. Just remember, on the back bar, volley, light hurricane, light poison injection, swap. Crit surge in when you can if you want it. The rest of the time, don't ever change it. That is going to be on the website, obviously, but that's pretty much it. So to recap once again, ignore the damage numbers. We've been on this for friggin' ages. It's not going to make for anything anymore. Beast trap, pet, volley, hurricane, poison injection, carve. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then pet, beast trap, swap. Start again. Now just bear in mind, of course, the carve does last 30 seconds if you've got 3 of them stacked up. So you don't need to cast it more than once every 3 rotations. But initially, you might want to start your rotation with just 3 carves to get it ticking. The choice is up to you. You can actually use it every rotation if you want, but I would not recommend that because eventually that's going to end up being a negative towards your resources. Just get in, whack it a few times. Once it's stacked up to 3, as you can see in the top corner there, or even twice in the first rotation and once in the second one. As long as you've got 3 stacks, you're good for 30 seconds. You don't need to cast it anymore. But, if you are in a situation where there isn't just one enemy, and there are 3, 4, 5, 6, and going on and on and on and on and on, and loads and loads and loads of enemies, well then things are going to change. This is where you're not going to use Wreck and Blow anymore. This is where you're literally going to take advantage of your master's weapon, and you are going to spam carve till your fingers bleed, basically. Once he's finished being in combat, we can actually swap this out. And I can show you exactly what I mean. Come on. People are waiting. Good. So, what we'll do is we will buy from the Crown Store for free. We'll buy 20 target dummies. There are ad pulls that have got 20 dummies, 20 targets in them. Easily. Did that wrong. You. Let's just say we've got a good tank, hopefully. And you can stack all these nice ads. Or a couple of tanks that are working together. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Rather than egos taking over. So, this is where it differs. We will still do the same rotation, but we won't press Wreck and Blow anymore. If you are in those situations, yes, of course, you can change your Wreck and Blow for your bound armaments, if you prefer. But if you know you're going to be in a mixture of fights, then obviously you might not have time to do so. But this is where it will differ. So, you will have your pet active. You have your beast trap running, and then you do your rotation as normal. We've got an ulti, so we're going to use it. And we spam this for days. Activate your pet. That was 700k DPS then. And spam. We're not buffed either because we aren't using the target dummy buffs. If you do run low on resources, obviously use a heavy attack, but we're not going to be doing that. We're going to have, obviously, group situations where your resources aren't going to be that bad, and yes, of course, we're spamming with no buffs or anything running. That is absolutely mental, and in actual content, you will be annihilating things very, very quickly. Now, based on the previous setup, of course, we don't have exactly the same amount of damage output as far as our damage over time is concerned, because we were taking 3 carves instead of 1. Now that's not the case. But what you can do, there's one more change. If you don't have the Master's Bow, change this skill for Soul Trap. But you don't want it Consuming Trap. You want it to be the Soul Splitting Trap. That will give you an extra single target damage over time, costing Magicka, and every single one of these targets will get hit, and a Zerblight will fire much, much faster. Hopefully that helped. That is going to be on the website, of course, so all the rotations and variations of the setup will be there. Now, before we go, we do, of course, want to show off the fashion, because the fashion is very important. And my voice is getting better. So, we've got heavy Minotaur helmet, heavy Minotaur chest, heavy Silver Rose pauldrons. We were using Regatta, but they seem to have changed that somehow. Heavy Dromathra gauntlets. Nothing on the belt because you can't even bloody see it. Heavy Minotaur greaves. Yokedan feet. Malakath battle axe. Very nice. And, of course, this Shitjig Order bow. Nearly stuttered that. It was difficult. Shitjig Order is difficult anyway. That's pretty much it apart from the colours. The colours are... We've got Colossus Brass, wherever the hell that's gone, which is here. You need to have Halls of Fabrication completed for that. You don't need Vet, you just need to get it on normal. And then also you want Legate's Black if you can get it, or any other black is fine. Thalmor's not too bad, or there's a bit grey. Void Pitch is really cool, but sometimes a bit purple in certain areas. Anyway, hopefully that helps. Hopefully that wasn't too boring. Hopefully you now have a better understanding of how to approach this particular build. 2 major variations to it. All of it can be acquired on normal, apart from the monster set if you go for the single target setup. But I can guarantee most people are going to go for the AoE setup anyway. And even if you don't want to use the Master's Bow, again, you can use the Maelstrom Bow and then not use a Poison Injection and use Soul Split and Trap. Or you could just dump Poison Injection altogether and just put something else on the back, whatever you prefer. Again, it's all going to be on the website. This does stack up with other builds on the channel, so mix and match them and see what works for you. Once again, thank you for watching. I hugely appreciate the support. If you are not subscribing on YouTube already, please do hit that button. It is free. Bloody hell. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the info section for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, the website, xynodegaming.com. And of course, if you do go onto Instagram, you won't see a lot at the moment, but I'm going to be working on it. So keep your eyes peeled. You might see some other games on there as well. Spoiler, Gran Turismo, Elden Ring. Anyway, bye-bye.